Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. I'm your host, Gene Jackson, and as always, it is my pleasure to welcome back my co-hosts, Josh Briley and Richard Mullican of P3 Radio. What's up, guys?
Maybe I shouldn't do
What's up,
this.
man?
This doesn't look right. We're excited to be here.
Yay!
Clearly. And folks, we appreciate you checking out the show, and we do ask, please subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you're listening to this or watching this right now, whatever platform it's on. It would really help us out if you'd take a moment and subscribe and rate it and leave us a review. Tell us what you like or tell us what you don't like or what parts of the show you enjoy or who you enjoy or don't enjoy on the show. You know, every week I ask these guys, what was your least favorite part of this episode? What was your favorite part? Hey, go in the comments. Tell us what your least favorite part was, or your favorite part, be it of the actual show we're reviewing or this show. So we'd appreciate the feedback. And right now, let's quickly kind of review what happened last week on the show. We had a pretty fun show last week. We had that amazingly patriotic and confusing Jeff Jarrett music video. The USWA debut of Scotty Flamingo as he came in to challenge Jeff Jarrett for that Southern Heavyweight title. And then, Brian Christopher had cost the Moondogs a match and caused Richard Lee to get his head shaved. And so the Moondogs issued a challenge to Brian Christopher, and Brian Christopher brought in a tag team partner. I don't know if you guys remember this tag team partner he brought in, but let's let Brian Christopher very quickly tell you about him just to refresh your memory.
He's big, he's black, and he is mean.
That's right, the big black dog, and he is everything Brian Christopher billed him as, and then some. But of course, also on the last show, that Monday night, the long-running feud there between Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert and Doug Gilbert, the king of rock and roll, came to an end as Eddie Gilbert defeated Doug Gilbert, and Doug has now left the USWA, and we'll have to see where Eddie goes from here. But if you want more insight into that feud, you can check out episode 11 of this very show where I talked to Doug Gilbert about it, or you can check out weekly episodes of Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert that we've got going on right now. He talks about that feud extensively and all things related to the Gilbert family. But if we're talking about the last episode of this show, perhaps the most important thing that happened last time, or most exciting, however you want to word it, the one and only Macho Man Randy Savage was live and in the studio, and he eventually found his way face-to-face with the King right there on TV, setting up a match for that Monday night. Quite the show we had last week, guys.
King put on his church crown, man. He was looking good. Like, he must have known Randy was going to strut that ass in there.
Where was that this week, I wonder?
Yeah, he was just looking regular.
Yeah, wore sweats and stuff. It was...
Well, we'll see who he's up against, and you can kind of decide for yourselves why he may have took that approach. So speaking of that, we're going to get right into it today. Harlem Knights and Brian Christopher come into the studio. And before we get into this, before we talk about this match here that took place, I'm just curious to check with you guys. What do you guys remember about the Harlem Knights? Your first impression of them when back in that time frame?
Well, I remember like this specifically because I didn't get to watch it live because it was during, I don't know if we were out of school for some kind of something, but either way, I had to watch it later on, and I watched it on a tape, I guess later that night. And I remember thinking, because I guess I didn't see the week before, but whenever they walked out with Brian Christopher, I was like, oh my God, these guys are huge. And when you're that age, all it takes to get over is like being big, and you think, well, damn, he'll just crush the King. Jeff Jarrett ain't got no chance. Whoever. Yeah, that's what I remember. And you know, whenever what happened today on the show happens, that put the stamp on it.
Richard,
Yeah.
did you have high hopes, low expectations? What was your initial thoughts on the Harlem Knights?
If I'm honest, and this is weird because I was a bigger guy when I wrestled. It was like I hated them. I just hated them. But you know what's funny is I always gravitated towards Mo a little bit more. Like I felt like he was more of a, you know, I remember we went to the ballpark here in Jackson, and they had a show there when we were younger. And I remember Mo putting on some pretty good matches, you know, like it wasn't just a big guy relying on his size. And, you know, you got those typical, I'm a big guy. I'm going to wrestle like a big guy. I'm not going to do anything other than, you know, it's like a stereotypical guy. Yeah. And I thought, you know, they kind of put them into that mold when they first started. So, and the Moondogs for me too were the same way. You know, they just didn't register for me as a kid. Yeah, they're crazy. Yeah, they're wild. But back when I was looking at it, I was just like, oh, let me turn the channel. I wanted to see the action, and I knew kind of what I was getting when I got the bigger guys in there.
Well, let's hear what Brian Christopher has to say about his new partners here, and then we'll actually hear a little bit from the Harlem Knights before we see them in action.
Brian Christopher, look at that. He is leading the Harlem Knights in this way. One of these guys weighs over 500 pounds. Hit.
What is this? Putting the Harlem Knights in the first match with main eventers anywhere. This is a disgrace, but we're getting ready to go in here and we're going to crush some skulls.
Well, Harlem Knights not happy about being in the opening match, Corey, but
Dave, didn't I tell you I was the smartest man in the world? Look what I've got, Dave. I've got the meanest and vicious animals anybody can ever find, Dave Brown. I searched high and low, and I came up with the Harlem Knights.
Well, they are very large, Brian, but I tell you what, if you don't mind, six-man match, if you'll climb up on the ring, we'll get this one underway.
Dave Brown, this is going to be a day off. I don't know if I even have to get in the ring. The Harlem Knights are the baddest men on the planet. You can put 20 men in the ring, and they'll beat them all, much less 3. I don't even think I'm going to have to exert any energy whatsoever.
We're going to ring the bell.
So they're not yet Mo and Mabel here. We got Bobby Knight and Nelson Knight. Bobby being Mo and Nelson being the future Mabel. Mo or Bobby coming out here doing what I can only describe as a growling version of Jey Uso's yeet, it sounded like, as he's coming out. I don't know what that was exactly. And Nelson is already complaining that they're in the opening match. They should be in the main event. But by all accounts, so I've done some research on these guys, and some things will tell you that they got in the business in 91. I don't know if that's true, because it would appear they had only been doing like independents in the Carolinas up to now. We'll talk a little bit more about that after we watch this match. But anything y'all want to add before we take a look at this quote unquote 6-man tag team match?
I mean, my biggest thing was like, why were they coming out barking? Like, dressed like the you know, in the 90s they had that vision of what the future would be, you know, with the headbands and everything. And it was like, why are they dressed like this? You know, you don't need all the gimmicks. You're a big guy tag team. So right away I was kind of like, you know, what in the world are we doing here? Come on, what are we doing? But the barking kind of like surprised me, because I felt like that was more like the Moondogs thing. So
I was just kind of taken back by the first match comment, because you wonder, you know, like obviously he felt some kind of way about that.
Yeah,
I think he had to have. He's probably in his head thinking, because wherever he came from, he probably was the main event.
And I mean, last week they couldn't even get the time to be there. Right, they came early.
Yeah.
Like, last match, people don't come early.
where they came from didn't have TV. As far as I can tell, this is their very first time on television, and they're on live Memphis TV. So I like to think maybe they got fed that line just to kind of put it in people's heads that these guys are main eventers, considering how this is going to play out. And I've got a little more insight into that, how that came about too. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. Speaking of their gear, it always looked like to me that Nelson Knights gear, they had took a couple of parachutes and cut them up and sewn them together to make things. Right. I mean, not flattering at all, but that's what I used to describe him as until I saw him as Viscera, or Big Daddy V rather, with just the pants and the suspenders. And I was like, oh my God, get this guy another parachute. This is not good. Because they always oiled him up, it seemed, right before he went out there. Or perhaps that was just his natural sweat. And anyway, let's go to the match.
And get this one underway here.
You know what, Dave? This looks so easy. I think I'll just camp out here on the table. A day off for me.
Now, Brian Christopher not even going to ringside as his Harlem Knights. Oh, yeah.
I think I'll lay right here. Way to go, baby.
Look at this. Laying down here on the table, taking it easy while the Harlem Knights are in there doing all the work.
Let's talk about the... Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Ooh.
Holy Moses. Holy
wow. And 500-pounder, the slingshot, as he threw him into Tim Sadler back in the corner. I don't see how Tim
Oh, my gosh. You're not going to do that, are you?
Standing.
Oh, no.
What is this? Oh, my God.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. Yes. Yes.
Paid as a partner with these guys if you want to. But...
Oh, my gosh. Play the end.
Here's
this. Put the end to anybody's career right here.
Oh, there goes that big Harlem Knight, and boy, breaks the ropes over there.
Hey,
he broke the rope.
Yeah, 525 pounds on the rope.
If you can't bring us a ring to hold these big monsters, we ain't ever coming back. Not only do we break bones, but we break rings. That's right. Yeah.
Boy, big double drop kick. 850
anything
pounds.
that gets that out.
Oh, now look at that.
Look at this.
Hey.
Look up on the apron, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Dave Brown, hey, he is not signed
up there. Top rope. Masters leader. Oh,
out of the way.
Yes,
Can he get the tag? He's looking for Jeff. He's looking the wrong way. He turns. Did he see him? Yeah, he got it.
Crossmaster gets the tag on Jarrett. Here comes up Jarrett. Far away on the Harlem Knights. Boy, the big 500-pounder comes in. Jarrett sends Christopher, another Harlem Knight down. Runs away on the other big guy. Can't get him down.
Okay, we're going to come back to this match and the happenings of this match here in just a moment. We had, best I could tell, unless you remember something I don't, this is the debut for the three of these enhancement guys. I don't remember seeing the Cowboy, Ash Masters, or Tim Sadler previous today. Maybe I'm just not paying attention, but I don't remember those guys. But we'll pick back up with that in just a moment. But so after watching this match up to this point from what we saw, what are your thoughts on the Harlem Knights now? Just this match, nothing you saw after this match. But if we're sitting there watching this for the very first time, and I just cut the TV off, I'm like, guys, what do you think of the Harlem Knights? What's your knee-jerk reaction?
Cool, Shockmaster. I mean, it's like, well, now we've ruined the whole show for everyone because now we're going to imaginary hit the ropes every time because we can't get a good spring off of that because somebody broke them and almost tore his ACL in the process. I got bored because they kept doing the same moves. This match was really way too long, Gene. I think I texted you guys in the middle of it, and I was like, this match is still going on. And they're beating. Now, the only saving grace for this whole segment was Brian Christopher. You know, Brian being over the top, celebrating. I mean, he really, made it more entertaining. But yeah, I mean, watching that one match, they probably should have done all they wanted to do in the big leg drop, and that was it. But it just kind of got to the point where it's like, all right, these guys are going to smash you in the corner and then try to jump off the second rope for a leg drop every time. They did that. They tried to do it 3 times. They couldn't do it after the second time because the rope broke. So for me, I was just like, man, this is not good. You never want the audience to laugh at you, especially in Memphis. Memphis was taken a little bit more seriously. And if you had a big, nasty heel, you never wanted to hear them giggling and laughing at them for anything. They always wanted to be taken serious. So, Josh, I'll stop talking and let you do some here.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, man, the match isn't even over. We're not done, and you're already exhausted.
Yeah.
I felt the same way, but if I was to shut the TV off, like you said, Gene, I would feel like they have potential. I mean, everything's there. I mean, if they had the proper, like, I guess, grooming to be like, hey, maybe do more, like Richard was saying, they did the same shit over and over. They did the Irish whip splash at least 3 times, the big leg drop twice, but they were going to do it 3 times. It makes me feel like wherever they came from, they probably didn't do matches that long. It was just boom, boom, boom. We hit the leg drop, big finish. We're done. We go back and we do it again next week. You know what I mean? Maybe they were pissed off they were in the first match, and then, maybe they said something in the back, and they're all right. We'll go out there for 14 fucking minutes.
Well, I think this was planned. Like this screams, old school booking. You're going to do this to this guy, and then you're going to do the same thing to the second guy, and then you're going to do the same thing to the third guy, and then Jeff's going to come out. I think that it was planned, but I do think it's funny that for the second week in a row, Corey probably had to come out and go, does anybody have a MIG welder? The ring seems to be broken.
Dude, Jeff didn't get out till the 10-minute mark, though. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like it took forever.
It took a while
to get to that point.
Took a while.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the Jeff aspect of it in a minute. So yeah, number one, that was a pretty scary moment there where the rope snapped. I mean, it's 1,000 miracles that Nelson Knight didn't break his leg, or at the very least snap his ankle or anything. There wasn't any kind of injury that come out of that, because it was pretty scary looking. Yeah, I don't really blame them for this match, because clearly somebody gave them that amount of time and told them to fill it. And clearly the plan was like, all right, you're going to take out each jobber one at a time. You're going to stack them out here by the ring like firewood, one on top of the other. You're going to do your entire arsenal of moves to each one. Not realizing that, less is more. I mean, that's what we learned. I mean, that's how we got the Road Warriors over. That's how we got Magnum TA over. Go in, hit the shit you do really well, really quick, and get out of there before anybody sees the holes in your game. And so I think these guys were done a disservice being put in there for 14 minutes or however long it turned out to be, and told, like, do your everything you know how to do to each fucking guy. So here's some food for thought on these guys. And maybe we're getting ahead to even talk about this right now. But as I said, I did some research on them, and I can't find any traceable results of them having matches until January of 1993. And that's from the PWF and the Carolinas, which they both have stated in interviews. That's where their careers started. So if they did have some kind of matches on, little shitbird indies somewhere, it wasn't anything substantial until, January of 93. So we start out in the Carolinas in January of 93. Fast forward 3 months later, we're on Memphis television, getting ready to step into a main event angle with Jerry Lawler, Jeff Jarrett, and Uncle Danny. Now, consider this. That's in March of 1993. On May 4th, 1993, the Harlem Knights get a tryout for the WWF. They are on a WWF Superstars taping in Worcester, Massachusetts. The Harlem Knights, Bobby Knight and Nelson Knight, defeat Jason Knight, which that's too many Knights in the ring. They changed somebody's name, and his tag team partner, Tim McNeely. Okay. Now, just barely a month later after that, on June 14th, 1993, They're men on a mission. Mabel and Mo defeating Barry Hardy and Dwayne Gill, who would go on to be Toxic Ninja Turtles and several other masked gimmicks on WWE TV on an episode of Wrestling Challenge. The following day, on June 15th, men on a mission win a squash match on WWF Superstars, and they're off to the races. They're in the WWF from March to June, 3 months' time. We have our first match ever on television in March, and by June, Vince McMahon has put them on TV in the WWF as men on a mission. That's got to be one of the fastest rises for a tag team, at least, because even the Road Warriors did small, territory matches and got built up on like Georgia television and places like that before they made it big. That's pretty crazy. Like, these guys are really getting thrown in the deep end here. And when you consider it from that point of view, I don't know. It just kind of changes my perception of them. Like, I get everything you guys are saying, and it's all absolutely true. But at the same time, it's like, it's not their fault. They're dealing, the hand they're dealt as best they can. It's going to knowing all that makes it interesting to watch this unfold. What I'm trying to say, I guess.
Yeah. Do you think maybe it was because, Vince was drawn to bigger guys, and this was right at the end of the steroid era where they couldn't really have guys that were super inflated anymore? So why not bring in these two monstrous looking guys? Yeah, they don't have the bodies of bodybuilders or anything like that, but you can't deny that they're large guys, and Vince loved that. So, I mean, I feel like that probably played into it, and, in the WWF, how many times have they taken big guys that weren't ready and just said, all right, just go out there, because your look is what's going to put butts in the seats.
Oh, I'm sure Vince, the minute he laid eyes on Nelson Frazier, was like, we got to do something with him, but then Brian Christopher's like, he's big, he's black, and he's green. And so they're like, all right, well, tell you what, we're not as impressed with his tag team partner, because in the land of the WWF, he's not that big, but somebody's going to need to take the bumps and get knocked around while we teach Big Mabel. So I think that's kind of how, Mo made the transition to the WWF with him and how the tag team came about. And that's not disparaging, Bobby Horn. He's a talented guy and he deserved to be there. But I don't think he would have ascended to the top as quickly as he had if Mabel wasn't a guy that Vince was going to be like, oh, yeah, I can see him headlining a pay-per-view. I can see him challenging Diesel at SummerSlam, and we all know how that ended up playing out. I don't think any of it worked out exactly the way Vince or anybody else wanted to. But again, keeping all that in mind just puts a different spin on this for me of seeing what a fast forward job they're going to do on getting these guys from Memphis TV straight on up to the WWF. So again, they take these enhancement guys out. You can tell what the mission these men were on, so to speak, was to take these guys out one by one using their whole array of moves. And like I say, stacking them up next to the ring. Well, on the second one, the rope snaps. And now you can tell they're kind of lost. Like, what do we do now? And so things kind of got sideways at that point. But I'll ask you this. When these two guys come walking through the curtain, for any amount of money, would you have bet that we would see a double drop kick a la the Rock and Roll Express from the Harlem Knights? Now, you got to admit, that's a little impressive, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, and I'll give Nelson Frazier or Mabel, which I thought was the worst name that they could have given him. It kind of my aunt had an old grandmother figure in her life that her name was Mabel, and I was like, why does he have a girl's name? Like, I don't get. Is he Maple?
Mabel. An old lady's name at that.
But that little spin wheel kick that he did was pretty impressive too. What was weird about it was, like I said, that part did not play into the stereotypical big guys role that they were playing. So it kind of felt a little out of place. I mean, it was athletic. Yes. It was, Undertaker talks about how there was all this stuff that he could do when he was in the ring, but he shouldn't have done it because it wasn't his character. So the double drop kick, while impressive, just didn't feel like it fit. And like you said, they were probably just trying to get all their stuff in as quickly as they could to just showcase what they could do.
Go ahead, Josh.
Well, I was just going to expand on that. I mean, you got to think though, during this time, Bam Bam Bigelow, Vader, those were two big guys doing a lot of athletic stuff in the ring, and they're probably just trying to play off that.
Yeah.
Just unfortunately, Nelson wasn't as athletically as gifted as those two, but still, I mean, it is something to see a big guy doing stuff like that. And to me, that would add an extra layer of terror if I had to face somebody like that in a real life fight. Oh, you get this big giant of a motherfucker, and watch out, he might do a goddamn spin wheel kick.
He may fall down while simultaneously kicking me, because that's kind of what he basically was taking a bump, but he had his leg high enough. You ran into it.
But it's spectacular, you know.
His leg was bigger than the guy, even when he was laying down.
He was taller. But you know, wrestling was kind of changing even at that point, where, like you said, you had guys like Bigelow and Vader, and more so than look how big this guy is and how he just, you know, towers over this guy, or he can just crush this guy. It got to be, look what this guy can do. Vader did a freaking moonsault. That's amazing, you know. Even though by old school, mentality, I'm like, why? We don't need you. Like, we were impressed when Muda did it. We don't need your fat ass up there doing a moonsault. It doesn't mean nothing. If 10 small guys do it, it no longer means anything that one guy that's as big as all of them can do it. And, you know, Mabel could have been, you know, just as impressive like doing it. It always reminds me of, I don't know if you guys remember this, but when Paul White first came to the WCW as the Giant, and I kept hearing about this, and I didn't really believe it. And eventually I saw pictures of it, and later, and when I got to tape trading, I saw clips of it. Paul White could do a missile drop kick from the top rope. And he did it like once or twice, and Hogan and people like that pulled him aside and like, don't do that. We don't need you doing that. Booker T does that. Why the hell would you do that? And so he stopped doing all that. And I'm sure it added years to his career, if not his life, because if he'd have pulled that out every match, I'm sure he wouldn't have, you know, he wouldn't still be hobbling out there in AEW today having a match once every blue moon. But so I guess it's kind of one of those things, just because they can do it doesn't necessarily mean they need to do it. But then again, it makes them stand out, because when I got through watching that match, I had the same thought that you guys did. It's like, if you'd have took this match, if they would have just hit the ring, swarmed those three guys, let Brian lay on the desk, let these two guys beat up all three guys, and just go through, shoot them in the corner, do the splash, do the spin wheel kick, then do that leg, because his leg drop, Mabel leg drop was impressive enough off the second rope. That was wild. Once I saw that, I thought, oh, okay, there's the match is over. And then it kept going. Like I said, it kept going, it kept going, it kept going. Then you break the rope, and then it all seems like a joke at that point. But if they'd have just come in and squashed these guys in about a minute and a half and beat all three of them with just the two of them and went through one round of those moves they did, most people have been like, dang, these guys are tough dudes. But like you said, by the time this marathon was over with, you're just like, oh, come on, man. So this match in particular, again, we stack up the guys at ringside after we take them out. And then Jeff Jarrett decides to come out and be a part of this match. And no one stops him. He just is able to come. It's not like they were down a man from the beginning. I mean, all three men were still there. They were still available. They were just, two of them were incapacitated. But Jeff Jarrett was allowed to jump up on the apron and tag into the match. And until everything broke down, we just act like he's now all of a sudden a legal part of this match. And that's Dave and Corey's fine with it. And I'm like, flip the roles. If Brian would have jumped up on the apron and tagged in and beat the hell out of some baby faces, they'd have been like, oh, he's not a part of this match. Oh, come on. Hey, you're not a legal man in this match right now. But we're fine with Jeff doing it.
It's in the contract. If two people get their head crushed by a leg drop and the rope breaks, Jeff Jarrett can come out and get in the ring. It's in the fine print.
Eddie Marlin reminded us that was an old bylaw of the USWA rule book, that if those things happen, you now can substitute in any babyface of your choosing, because it's always going to be a babyface. So let's see what happened after we cut it off right as Jeff had come in and went to town. Let's see how this plays out real quick.
Hey, on the other big guy. Can't get him down, though.
No, he smacked him a good one, but he didn't get him off his feet, and he comes from behind and nails Jeff. And now, look out. It's 3 against 1. Here's Ash Masters trying to help out to make it 3 against 2 at least. Oh, look at that. The big one with a clothesline knocked him over the top rope.
Yeah, Master went flying over the top rope. After that clothesline, they all got Jarrett in the ring. And the big guy catches him with that big splash. 525 pounds coming at you. And the Harlem Knights and Christopher jump on Jarrett in there. Oh, boy. Boy, these guys at Harlem Knights, they've already dominated all of their opponents in here. And now going out to Jeff Jarrett. This kind of stuff is ridiculous and not called for in there.
It's 3 against 1. Looks like, look out, it gets some help. Lawler and Danny Davis jump into the ring, and they brought some equalizers with them. And now the Harlem Knights and Brian Christopher take the opportunity to get out of the ring. And
how'd you like that, sissy boy? About what a big bag tag team you got and how you like to hide behind them, obviously. Well, let me say this. You can come out here and you can throw guys around that don't have much experience, that are just trying to get started, and leave them laying in the ring. Get somebody out here for these guys. You can do that. But why don't we find out exactly what you could do against somebody that's been around a while, right? Would you people like to see how those Harlem Knights can do against these 3 guys right here, for instance? I'd like to know.
I would too.
I'd like to find out just how big and how tough those guys are. So I'll tell you what. Let's quit talking and find out.
To hell.
Was it just me or did Lawler say they were a big bag tab team?
I asked Richard, I said, what the hell did he just say? Sounds different.
That may have been his first.
Hey, come on now.
Long before.
Why is Jerry wearing flowery yoga pants this week?
I don't know what happened there.
They
people,
they love the purple. This is
about
like, how many?
Yeah,
weeks?
he looked like he got into Boy Tony's closet from 1987.
Even Jeff too. Jeff was wearing purple a couple weeks ago. Macho Man comes and they did a reset. It's like, all right, we better dress good. And now they're back to the purple shit.
And
like,
Danny's showing up. I thought we were doing an American thing. The video last week.
I'm just kind of doing this now, so. But there's all these complaints about guys today that don't sell, and I agree.
Yeah.
But they got these 2 brand new guys we're trying to get over as monsters. Nelson gave him a huge avalanche in the corner where he rolled over the top of him, and I thought perhaps he was actually maybe ended up hurt. Then he gives him a big splash in the ring. Jeff should have been carried out. There should have been questions of whether he would have even been able to compete Monday night. But no, he's back over here for a promo. We're going to see him again later. I think we probably should have at least carried him off and at least let him set that promo out. Maybe let him come out for the later promo with his ribs taped up or, somebody helping him. But I mean, much like Richard Lee, after he would just get his arm beat to a pulp, he would still get over there and cut his promo because that's what we're here for. I don't know. Am I wrong in that? Or
no, I had the exact same thought. Like, and to me, if they had planned it out to where Jeff comes back and goes, I won in that match. I'm gonna, it makes him look like even the bigger baby face because he's fighting against all odds.
Yeah.
And it gives them a weak point to let the heels win. There's so much stuff that can be done there, and I think they missed that opportunity. But why? It makes you think, did they go into business for themselves kind of in a way, like, and splash him like that? Or were they told to do it? And if so, why didn't they sell it more? It just stood out as weird to me as well.
I'm sure they told him to do it just based on how long it took Lawler and Davis to run in, because it's like they were waiting for those spots to happen before they come save him. I think it's just kind of like back to the first episode when Dundee got the 3 freaking pile drivers on the floor. It's just in this era, we're just not doing quite a good job of selling, and we certainly aren't doing great on attention to detail of things like that, or that's what it appears to be to me. But again, maybe I'm just too critical. I don't know.
And just throw a towel over it. It'll be all right.
And how much did this have to do with, well, we don't want him to think that he's not going to be there because then they might not show up. So we want to remove all doubt that Jeff is going to be there. And then, of course, then you've also got the other show that you've got to think about how it plays in to the Louisville part of the circuit that's a week behind.
That's true. And that could have everything to do with it, honestly. But, yeah, I was just like, either have him sell it all the way or just don't do it. Don't do both splashes, maybe one splash, but the 2 splashes from the guy you're billing is 500 and something pounds. should have did a little more damage than that because Jeff ain't exactly, Lex Luger. But anyway, we'll move past that because I know we wanted this show to move a little quicker, and I've already spent too much time on the Harlem Knights. But I wanted to kind of establish, that they're moving to bigger and better things pretty quickly here. So we return from a commercial break. We see highlights of how Brian Christopher and the Big Black Dog won the tag team titles last Monday night, thanks to interference from Burt Prentice. And, we've got a clip of that, but I think you guys can kind of figure out how that probably went down. And the highlight of that clip will actually be shown as we go to a commercial break here in a little bit. So we'll let you guys see that. Unless do you guys feel like we need the clip of the Big Black Dog? And
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Throw him in there.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and watch it then. Here we go.
Turnbuckles. Woo! And Moondog Splat comes off with that big splash in there. Takes Big Black Dog down. Comes off the ropes. Catches him off the ropes. And he's got Black Dog covered. But Big Black Dog gets out of the ring some kind of way. And hightails it out. Moondog Splat and Moondog Spot. Ooh. Catch Christopher. And Spot's got Christopher covered. Prentice trying to step in the ring. The Moondog catches him while he goes halfway. Christopher's got the ropes. Gives that rope that the Moondog wears around his waist to Prentice. He's got him covered. He got him. 1, 2, 3.
Well, as Burt Prentice figured into it there, you saw the titles that Christopher and Big Black Dog end up getting the victory. After the match, the Moondogs, there's a hair versus title match coming up. And take a look at this right here.
He said the same thing he said 10 minutes ago. No title match unless one of the dogs put their hair on the line. Wait a minute. You got to remember, Richard, you're the one that said no return match because I don't want to be wrestling these guys for 3 weeks. No return match. And they said they would not do it unless one of them put their hair on the line. That's the way it's stated.
We only need one. One, right? Just one of them put it up. Only one. We got to put it up. Listen, Spot, I'm going to put your hair on the line, okay? I'm going to put your hair on the line. I'm going to tell you what. I want you mean. All right? Because I know. You don't want to lose. Right? Right? We're in the match. We're in the match. Put the Spot's hair on the line. Spot's hair on the line. That's it.
Was you getting ready to translate for us, Josh? Do you speak Moondog?
I was just, oh God! Whenever he said your hair's going to look like this, I
did the same thing in my 20s when I started losing my hair. Every morning I'd get into the mirror and be like,
and then you go.
Yeah.
It's fun to think you look at the presentation of Moondog Spot, the clothes he wears, and everything else, but then to think it's frightening to him to be bald headed. Like that kind of makes guys like me and Richard self-conscious. Like, okay.
He feels like Goldilocks over there, man. He don't want to lose that shit.
So there was a promo from Brian and Burt Prentice. We're not going to show it because it's very similar to a lot of the Brian and Burt Prentice promos we've seen recently. But the gist of this is it had been said on the front end by Richard Lee that this was going to be a one and done. There weren't going to be any rematches, once this was over. But then they weren't counting on losing. So when Brian and the Big Black Dog won the belts and they wanted a rematch, Eddie Marlin let it be known to Richard there in the promo that, well, you guys said no rematches, so they don't have to give you a rematch. So they said the only way they'll give you a rematch is if one of the Moondogs will put their hair on the line. And all that back and forth you saw there with the Bobcat Goldthwait impression there from the Moondogs was setting up which Moondog, which turns out it's going to be Spot, who's going to put his hair on the line, even though he didn't react positively to the thought of looking like Richard Lee. Of course,
well, he's the longest reigning Moondog too. Like, shouldn't it be the sumbitch that just got there?
Yeah, that's what I thought. You're the new Moondog to the party, so put your hair up. But no, we're putting Spots up, so we may see a ball-headed Moondog Spot very soon. So that should be fun, right? I mean, who don't want to see that?
I think that makes him not a Moondog. I mean, the thing about the Moondogs is the long, stringy, moppy hair, just that whole raggedy presentation. But like, if you give him a buzz cut, that just makes him look like I don't know.
Like he's got his act together.
Yeah, like I'm trying to go to the
Moon
office.
Nazi. New gimmick.
I'm working at this
Suddenly, they really hate the big black dog. They attack the Harlem Knights just because.
Right.
They start marching down to the ring.
Maybe that's how we're going to get into a feud with those guys. We're going to end up getting both Moondogs' heads shaved, and suddenly they're going to be skinheads or something. We're time to freshen this. Richard Lee, like, time to freshen this gimmick up, brother.
What was the deal with Richard Lee's gimmick that he had on too? He was wearing like a Mel Tillis jacket and then a do-rag with a hat and an earring.
Well, I think he was a musician, like legit.
Yeah, he was
making elephants disappear.
He looks like they found a homeless guy behind the Grand Ole Opry whose career had died, and they were like, "Hey, man, you want to be a manager?" And he's like, "Yeah." And there he is,
right?
Because those jackets, you could tell they were like. Probably in like the 60s, that was probably a nice, brand new, shiny jacket by now. In 93, that had seen better days.
A little weathered, a few winters.
Very weathered. Little, what's that guy's name? Little Jimmy Dickens or whatever. Got his closet rated. But, so we go to another commercial break. And, guys, last week when we realized, much to Josh's pleasure, that Bruise Brothers were gone. I wrongfully assumed that Mike Samples had left with them because we saw no sign of Mike Samples last week. We heard no mention of Mike Samples last week, but it turns out there's a reason for that. Turns out he was asked to travel to Russia by the President of the United States. I don't have an image to even describe this, so let's just take a look at this clip. And we'll talk about it on the other side. Oh my.
We have another match coming up right here, but understand Mike Samples has brought in, oh my goodness, here he comes, waving the old flag of the former Soviet Union, it looks like. Headed this way, Mike Samples.
I was on a special assignment. Dave, the president himself called me and asked if I would go to Russia and help with their economic recovery. My business expertise is known worldwide, and I wasn't surprised to get the call. So I went over, and I found out the people in Russia are the nicest and kindest people. Yeah, they're down on their luck. The food supply is low. Their economy is in shambles, but they treated me so nice, and they're a proud people, Dave. And, I look around here, and you've got freeloaders here that come in for free. You've got people, homeless people, and the idiots that hang around on Summer Avenue, and these welfare people, and they get food stamps and government assistance. Why are we wasting our good money on these freeloaders when we could take it, send it to Russia, where it really belongs, and help those people? We've mistreated them for so many years, and it's got to stop, and I'm going to see to it as part of my economic recovery, Dave, and don't shake your head. That's what would be better than to bring him here. I'm teaching him a little English, get him training, get the protein powder, let him drink those shakes, get some vitamins, get him fired up, come in here and take that unified world's heavyweight belt and take it back to Russia, and that will increase their morale. That'll fire them up, and working with me and them, Russia will be a strong country again. And I liked it so well, when he takes that belt back, I may go and stay myself, Dave.
Well, that might almost be worth it. I don't know, but just to get you out of here. But he's going to have a tough time taking the unified belt from the person who holds it right now, let me tell you.
Здравствуйте, comrade. Меня зовут Pavlovsky. Shut up! Shut up!
Dave. He doesn't know these people are illiterate.
Guys. What the fuck are we doing here?
Lawler saw a Captain America comic from the 60s, and that's a good idea, maybe.
I mean, rather than just saying, all right, folks, you guys don't want to show up and see Macho Man Randy Savage. You want to sit your ass at home, and we're only going to draw 1,500 people. You know what we're going to do now? We're going to go get an old AWA cast-off who didn't even get over there, And we're going to have him still doing his tired-ass communist Russian gimmick, which Dave Brown was even pointing out as he came out, that it was the flag of the former Soviet Union, that it really wasn't even a relevant flag anymore. And then have Mike Samples tell this long-winded, because as long as that clip was, folks, that wasn't even a quarter of what this whole promo was. Tells this long-winded, convoluted, stupid backstory about the fucking president of the United States called him for his business acumen, because he did so well managing the careers of the Harris brothers. They're gone now. And that they needed him, a wrestling manager from Memphis, to go to Russia to help stimulate their economy, because at the time in 93, you know, the president of the United States was so concerned about the economy of Russia. I mean, Rocky IV was a long time ago. It was nearly 10 years before this point. Like, why the Russian brute in 93? Like,
maybe they just ran through that gauntlet of characters. Like, they've had different forms of creatures, horror movie dudes. Maybe Lawler was just like, what the hell can we do with this big white motherfucker? You know, like, what do we do? Oh, they won't know the Russian thing's tired. You know, like, that was just maybe he got a discount on some Russian gear or something.
I mean, it would make sense if he was fighting Jeff Jarrett, because Jeff Jarrett's the All-American boy.
I mean, he launches space shuttles, and he's patriotic, and he's out teaching young black children how to shoot basketball poorly, so well. Petting dogs, you know, all that American stuff.
But I mean, this was, like I said, it just looked like, and Lawler was a big comic book guy. It looked like he was like, yeah, we could do the Captain America type thing with it. I don't know, man. This was, like you said, like I said, the first half of the show was hard to watch because the segments droned on. It definitely wasn't Macho Man from last week. That's for sure.
I feel like this show was punishment for fans not turning out for Macho Man. We only drew 1,500 people, and they're like, oh, y'all don't want to come see Macho Man? All right, we'll give you some shit to watch. All right, let's do a 15-minute segment of the Harlem Knights, huh? How about we trot out the Russian brute from AWA circa 1989 that didn't get over, and let Mike Samples cut a 8-minute. Let Mike Samples cut a promo almost as long as the Harlem Night match, explaining the most convoluted, ridiculous backstory perhaps we've ever told on Memphis television to set up this match that no one's going to care about. And I mean, you think Lawler would have borrowed Danny Davis's patriotic outfit, but instead, like you said, he's out here wearing purple and, you know,
flower print,
looking like he robbed Boy Tony. Like, none of this is making sense for me. Like, I hope, and you know, we've been complimented that we're very respectful of the show, and when it's good, we are. But when it's stuff like this, I'm just scratching my head because it's like, y'all are capable of better than it. Was it like maybe it's Eddie Marlin who was still, you know, stuck in the past? He's like, we need a Russian. That's what we need, Jerry. Let's get us a good old Russian in here. They always get the heat, you know.
Well, he didn't even show up for TV. He got snowed in, you know, like maybe he was pissed.
Maybe he saw the format and he's like, I'm not coming for this. Because poor Mr. Guy Coffee had to come out there.
Could we look it up and see if there was any snow in late March?
I'm sure we could. We'll make that a assignment for next week. We'll do some homework, and next week we'll answer if Eddie Marlin was really snowed in somewhere, because I mean, we know what their territory is. Where inside the USWA territory would they have been snowed in March? You know, I mean, he lived outside of in Hendersonville over there by Nashville, is from my understanding, or somewhere in that vicinity. So, well, let's see what this Russian brute's all about in the ring. Maybe the promo wasn't great, but maybe he is fixing to get in here and just kill it in the ring, and we're going to be blown away, and we're going to take back everything we just said as he takes on Jerry Turman.
Flag, and swings it against his opponent's back. His opponent in here, Jerry Turman, never had a chance. He was out here waving that flag around and just hammered Turman before Turman was even ready to go. The Russian brute, the latest out of the stable of Mike Samples. Give him a big old leg drop.
Oh, the big Russian brute gives it to Turman, too.
Samples is smiling, laughing, clapping his hands over here.
A bit of it. Boy, is he loving it. The Russian Brood with Mike Samples in the USWA, and the Brood whips Thurman in, and boy, look at that, would you?
He grabbed it by the throat and just forced it down to the mat. That's it.
Yeah, he got him quickly, too. The Russian Brood gets the 1, 2, 3.
Now look who's waving.
So in the first half of this show, between the Russian Brute and the Harlem Knights, we've seen more leg drops than a Hulkamania highlight video from the 80s. What's going on?
Did I send y'all the thing that said the night of 29 leg drops? So I do want to point out he should not have beat up fat colorblind Jesus that bad, but there was a snowstorm. I had to look it up real quick. One of the strongest storms of the century, a rare true blizzard from eastern Kentucky, brought 6 to 30 inches of snow March 12th through the 14th. So where he was at in Kentucky, it was a shoot, brother.
I hope you guys are happy. Don't you ever question the integrity of Eddie freaking Marlin ever again. He was telling the truth, guys. Now I feel bad.
Yep.
Damn it.
Did you see that guy's tights, by the way?
That's what I told Richard. I said, I'm going to be on TV Saturday morning. You better watch me. I'll be in the pink and the burgundy tights. What the fuck? Why?
Bold choice.
White. Just wear white. Something. But
do you think it goes with your Charles Manson look with your hair and your beard? Yeah, I think it'll be great.
So this big dominant Russian Brute sees that guy standing in the corner. Is like, man, the only way I'm going to take this guy is if I attack him before the bell with this Russian flag and the pole. I might have a chance. I'm like, he hits him with the flag. He chokes him with his jacket. And I'm like, so you're having to cheat to take down this dude, and we're supposed to think you're going to have a chance against Jerry Lawler for the title? Like, what are you doing, man?
It did almost rip his head off with that choke slam.
I mean, the choke slam was ahead of its time. Like 1993, I don't know if you folks remember this, but choke slams weren't just getting handed out in 1993. That was a pretty new thing. So I was impressed with that at least. But so where are you guys at on the Russian Brute? You were less than impressed with the Harlem Knights. Having sit through the promo and your expectations are down, in the basement somewhere. Where are they at now seeing this?
You go ahead.
Hold up. I will say this before you go, not to cut you off, but if this is going to spoil your part at the end of the show where you have to tell your favorite part of the show, we can just skip this and let you tell it at the end.
I tell you what, if the promo wouldn't have built up so long, the match would have been okay. I mean, it's a TV match. It's a squash match. You get what you get. But I think the turd in the punch bowl was the 8-minute buildup to this, to this match. And it was like, oh man, by the time he actually wrestled, I was tired of seeing him.
I think, just from my point of view, dude had concrete in his legs. Like the way he moved his knees was like they were fucking heavy as hell. He didn't have a lot of mobility, just from the way it looked, and his tights really, really bothered me.
Wait, are you talking about the Russian Brute? Or the other guy?
The Russian Brute.
Okay.
Not only did his opponents bother me with the color choice, but the Russian Brute's tights. I mean, do you remember those T-shirts from like the early 2000s? Some girls would wear that. You're supposed to wear like something over it, or maybe like overalls or something. But they had that spandex type material. You get freaky with it, just kind of pull it down over there, and just exposed there. That's literally what the Russian dude looked like. His tights had straps to come up and go over his shoulders, but I mean, where the length stopped on the tights was like right above the belly button. So it's full chest. I mean, why do you got the straps? What are the straps for? His back was covered more than his front, which is really weird with those.
I really do.
I didn't get it. That's what made me think that they got like some Russian gear like on sale or something, and this guy was way too tall for it. And he just stretched the shit.
He got some Ivan Koloff's old shit and stretched it over this poor guy.
His dude's like 6'4", at least. Koloff, Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm with Richard. I mean, like the match itself would have been great, but after that bullshit promo, and then I seen this tights, I can't get on board.
Well, not everybody's going to get this reference, but throwing back to a podcast I used to do, which is being re-released for you to listen to, folks. The interview segment and the match reeked of being a Herb Abrams UWF segment where they would have these long meandering promos that were absurd and there's no way they'd never get heat because it was so ridiculous and unbelievable you wouldn't care. And then a match where the enhancement guy is awful and you could tell before it even starts that he doesn't have a chance in hell, and then the match is kind of just all over the place. And they definitely didn't have a seamstress because, like you said, everybody's gear looks like just, homemade or something. So I don't know. This felt like a throwback to the UWF, and that's not a good thing. So let's just try to forget this first half of the show, guys. Let's go into the second half with a positive attitude, and hopefully on the other side of this commercial break, spoiler, we're going to be seeing some Uncle Danny. So how could it not get better, right? It's got to get better. So let's go take a commercial break. Let's shake it off. Let's get a drink. And let's see if the second half doesn't redeem this for us. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
Before we went to commercial, that clip of Brian Christopher being squashed between the 2 Moondogs with him facing Moondog Splat, all I could in my head was that promo of Brian just burying Splat last week, talking about the fat slob and disgusting lard ass he was. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that was playing in Splat's head as they did that spot. Because it looked not fun.
They made a sexy sandwich.
He said that like every time we've seen that clip, by the way.
I love it. Sexy sandwich.
That needs to be a t-shirt. We'll just put that picture on a t-shirt. It says sexy
Brian
sandwich
in the middle just
So Corey lets us know where the USWA is headed soon, and then we bring out the King and Jeff Jarrett, who find out that the 6-man tag match they requested earlier in the show has been added to the card for the Mid-South Coliseum on Monday night. Lawler talks about all the huge stars that have been in recently to challenge for the unified title, and then says, and now the Russian Brute is here to challenge him, which probably wasn't a great thing to point out. I don't think he did himself any favors there. Kurt Hennig, Brandy Savage, Russian Brute. Hey, you guys come out Monday night. It's going to be good. I promise.
The way we're going next, going to be some guy named Tim.
Yeah.
See Tim.
you come out and join the raffle at the intermission, and you could challenge Jerry Lawler for the unified world title. Bring your worst pair of tights that you can find, the most off-putting color, and you too might make television next week. He makes this analogy about the Russian Brute coming to Memphis to steal his title, and it's the same as someone breaking into your house and robbing you. And if he was in that scenario, he should only he did insinuate, well, I can't say what I would do, insinuating that he would kill the guy. So we can only hope we could be so lucky that that's how this plays out on Monday night, that Lawler just kills this guy. But anyway, then, of course, he insinuated that he may burn the Harlem Knights and Brian Christopher on Monday night because, you know, Brian just now stopped wearing the bandage from the last time that Lawler insinuated he was going to burn somebody. We're going to the well on certain things way too often, namely hair matches. We've gone to the hair match well almost every week since we've been covering this show. Somebody somewhere, every other week at least, has been getting their hair put on the line. It loses something. And now, you know, used to every so often, once in a blue moon, when some situation got a little too hairy, Lawler would insinuate, hey, it might get hot down there Monday night. Now, I mean, 2 weeks after he burns Brian Christopher, we're already insinuating we may burn these guys Monday. Again, am I being too harsh, or you think maybe we're going to the well a little too often?
Come on out. We're going to shave somebody and burn somebody.
Well, even Brian pointed it out in his previous interview when Bert was out there. Not only did he lick the tag team title in like more than one occasion, he just like
pre-COVID.
Yeah, just licking on it. And then he said, this is fun. I beat people, then I shave their head.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much the policy at that point. I find it ironic, though, that Brian had spent so much time talking about how disgusting the Moondogs were, namely Splat, and then proceeded to lick the title that they had been wearing for the previous couple of weeks. Anyway,
I laughed my ass off watching that.
Do you think it was the barber sponsorship that Corey had nailed down for him? I can't remember the name. It's a weird name, but you think it was?
He always mentions them.
Yeah,
they're gonna be in the house to cut the hair down that Monday night. So yeah, it could be like, hey, we got that barber sponsor. We got to do another hair match. It's been a week. We're gonna lose that sponsor money. You know, they throw us $40 every time we mention them on the air. So then Jeff, who is fully recovered, no signs of any problems from those splashes earlier, thank goodness.
Or patriotism.
Jeff says that Axel Rotten will be coming in on Monday night to challenge for the Southern title via this open door policy that we've talked about quite a bit recently here on the USWA when it's convenient. And, you know, again, I don't mean to be negative, but we went from Scotty Flamingo challenging for the Southern title and Macho Man challenging to the world title to this Monday night. We're promising Axel Rotten challenging for the Southern title and the Russian Brute. It feels like we took a little bit of drop quality wise. Am I wrong? Or are you guys pretty hyped about Axel Rotten and Russian Brute?
I mean, we're still not back to where we were at the beginning of the year, I don't think, but we've definitely 2 steps forward, 1 step back, as Paul Abdul would say, right? We're definitely not with Macho Man, Lex Luger, any of those guys, Scotty Flamingo, who would later become Raven. We're definitely taking a step back on the talent side, I think.
I'll say this. If copyright wise, if we could play that song, don't know what you got till it's gone. Hope that don't get us pulled. I would take Mike Miller all day long over the Russian Brute.
Just a fuzzy video of a chair flying through the air.
If we could see him coming here with a black eye, and him and Lawler just got into it at like a buffet somewhere 2 days ago, and now it's on again, I'm there.
He took the last part of chicken, and I wanted it.
I had been waiting on them crab legs 20 minutes, and Lawler swooped in there and got them.
Him and his young girlfriend.
I'm feeding 3 people here, me and my 2 women.
He just dates them because they eat for free. We'll cut that out later.
Yeah.
No, we'll leave that in. We'll be right back. Anyway, so match number 3 for the USWA Middleweight Champion, brand new Middleweight Champion, that is, Nightmare Danny Davis takes on the Demon. Now, you guys have been pretty rough on the enhancement guys so far, especially the last one. What did you call the last one? he's something Jesus. I forget now.
Oh yeah, colorblind Jesus.
Colorblind Jesus. What? How would you guys describe the demon in this?
Bill
match?
Rush in a bodysuit.
I think he's smaller than Bill Rush. I thought this was probably like a 12-year-old kid. I was waiting really like for Josh to be like, yes, I was 12 years old and Uncle Danny brought me to the studio and I had a match.
Knowing how Mr. Uncle Danny was going to put Josh in a match when he was like 13.
Yeah.
You may be onto something here.
Well, I was 11.
Thought that was going to be the redeeming quality of this match. But I thought that was going to be the redeeming. I started doing the math and I'm like, Josh would have probably been like 11 or 12 here. So this could be him. I'm like, when he shows up loving this episode and we're all like, what? Why? And then he's going to be like, I got an admission, guys. Demon right here. That was me. But
I'm going to let you in on a little secret. At that age, we were both pretty portly. And
yeah, we were a lot bigger than that
guy. you would have known if it was Josh because you'd be like, why is he beating up that little fat kid?
Why has Nelson Frazier got a mask on in this match? We just saw it earlier.
I'm so sad he broke that rope. I want it up there.
But those 100% are women's boots that the Demon's wearing. Like that.
Well, if you think we're being mean right now, let us if you're listening, you can only hear this clip, and this is a good reason for you to get on the YouTube and check out the video of this podcast, or check out the whole show, this particular show. I know we haven't sold it very well up to now, but you kind of have to see it to believe it. Let's take a look.
We'll be underway with this one, and here's Corey Macklin with a blow-by-blow description.
Thank you, Dave Brown. Good takedown from Nightmare Danny Davis. And boy, if anybody can do it, he can. He can wrestle, let me tell you. 1, 2, and the Demon kicks out of the hole from Danny Davis. Danny comes in out of Pensacola, Florida, now wrestling as the middleweight champion in the U.S. a little bit. The Demon trying to hang on, and Danny Davis slams away on the Demon, going up to the mask again. Whoa, and
all right, now wait a minute.
His company, yeah.
Yeah, the Harlem Knights and Brian Christopher all of a sudden make an appearance. The Knights.
We don't need any of that out here.
No, I don't know what they're doing out here. I mean, they're super heavyweights. If there was a super heavyweight division, they got absolutely no. Oh, hey, we have some other interested spectators in Jeff Jarrett and Jerry Lawler. Yeah, obviously here to kind of keep things even. Danny Davis. Oh, I know what they're doing out here. They're looking ahead to that next match. I wonder if they had ideas of going in there and making it so Danny could not show up for the match coming up. Well, Jeff Jarrett and Jerry Lawler are here to make sure that that does not happen.
Look at that little mini pile driver that Danny just puts on the Demon. And the Demon laid out in the middle of the ring. Danny whips him in. Big forearm flips him over, and no movement yet from, well, Christopher and the Harlem Knights overrunning their mouth over there, yeah.
Danny just told him, he said, you guys want to come on in here? Come on. I got some partners here. Ooh, a snap neck breaker there by Danny Davis.
Got the Demon covered. 2, 3. Nightmare Danny Davis gets the 1, 2, 3. The win over the Demon and Christopher and the Harlem Knights.
I am 47 years old. I've watched wrestling my entire life. I have never seen a more dangerously executed tombstone pile driver in my entire life.
We were sitting here wondering what that man said that gave Danny such a vicious dislike for that man's C4. Because
and then Corey got him with a mini pile driver, like fucking undersold it like a son of a bitch. It looked hard, like it looked bad.
Oh my god! I mean, I know this was in 1993, but I said a prayer for that guy right then. Watching it, it's like, oh, because he wasn't holding on to anything. I mean, the key to a tombstone pile driver is that you're locked on pretty tight and you're just riding down. He was just, his arms were dangling, and Danny just dropped to his knees. Wow. Now, the angle of the camera, we couldn't see his head hit to know how many vertebrae was probably compressed and broken and destroyed. But anyway, Uncle Danny has his way with that junior high student there in a mask, and eventually Harlem Knights and Brian Christopher make their way out into the studio, and you think, well, you know, luckily for this kid, we're going to get our weekly run in, so he's going to at least be safe. No, they just stood there and watched him kill this guy. And once he's done paralyzing this kid,
right. Kid's definitely
Lawler
tube to
Lawler
move
and Jarrett,
right
that they don't come out.
State funded wheelchair.
Say he almost killed that guy, and that's how he won. Terrible.
Hey, whenever I was watching it back at home, I said, "That's for you, Miss Pearl." Saying I don't win shit.
My grandmother hyped your uncle up so bad that he paralyzed a young boy. That neck breaker was pretty stiff too.
Josh is like, Uncle Danny, Richard Lee's grandmother been talking a lot of shit about you, dude. She said you can't win a match. He's like, really? Okay.
Tell her to
all
tune
right.
in this Saturday.
You tell her watch Saturday morning, and she can get it too if that's what she wants.
Oh, he wasn't picking her up for that pile driver. She wouldn't go, and he would have needed cooperation. She was a big gal. So,
but yeah, that neck breaker would have made Rick Rude cringe. I mean, that was pretty rough looking too, as you mentioned there. So
I do have a question.
He told him we got to compensate for that broke rope, kid.
Got to make it real. I do have a question. How many times do you think Danny, in training people at his school, told people, once you hit them with a tombstone pile driver, go for the cover. Do not pick them up and hit them with another move. Because I know I was told that, but Bill. So Danny's probably like, I know we're going to hit everything we can on this kid because he showed up with somewhat matching gear, and that is frowned upon here in Memphis.
No, that kid made Bill Rush look like, freaking Scott Steiner. Like, I don't think that was Bill Rush. That dude was, because Uncle Danny, while he's muscular, he's a small guy, and your uncle towered over this kid. That's what made it stand out to me the first time I watched it. I was like, good Lord, as big as he is, that has got to be a freaking teenager. Like, that's somebody's son that was here. Like, hey man, put a mask on your kid. We're gonna make this work.
Well, it was a snowstorm situation, I guess. So maybe they needed somebody,
I think I know where the heat came from, because during that match, me and Josh were talking to each other. That was definitely Danny's mask that the guy was wearing. That was a granny mask. That was the ones that Josh's grandmother used to make. So that kid went through Danny's bag, and that's a big no-no in wrestling. You don't go through another wrestler's bag. So I think he got what was coming to him. You don't go through another man's bag. That's why he was trying to take the mask off. He's like, "This is my mask, you son of a bitch." My
mask.
What are you doing?
I'm tired of you and Josh and his little buddy Richard always going in my bag.
Yeah. Yep. He let
I
out.
don't have no snacks in there. Damn it. So we take another break, and when we come back, we see highlights from last Monday night as PG-13 was taking on Miss Texas and Hurricane Hatchet, and we'll listen to a little bit of that. It's only about 30 seconds, but you're going to get the gist of how this ended. Check this out.
Trying to tag Miss Texas, and he does. Here comes Miss Texas. Boy, does she run away on PG-13. Each other. Miss Texas, oh boy. Sir Wolfie D's got Miss Texas over here. JC Ice comes off the top rope to that hubcap. Oh, I tell you, Sir Wolfie D covers in 3.
Poor Miss Texas takes a hubcap to the dome, and that is it. Wow.
Yeah, what was really crazy about that was, like Josh said, even after the hubcap, how she landed and everything, it just looked vicious, But yeah, they're getting this feud over with Miss Texas,
Speaking of that,
it kind of does add a level of nastiness, they're already beating up a woman.
Yeah.
And then it's like, they need a damn hubcap to win. And I could see most of the audience feeling that way and just being so pissed off. It works.
And you have to put this kind of heat on them because they want to like them. The crowd wants to like them.
Yeah.
I want to like them.
It's true. And so they're making everything they do just completely like where you can't respect them. Like, these guys they're having to use a hubcap on a woman. They're having to use a hubcap on the enhancement guys. Like, they hit everybody with a hubcap. Like, I can't support that. Eventually they get past it. They can support that. I guess it just depends on who you're hitting with the hubcap, right? That's what it all boils down to. But you know, it's always one of my favorite parts of the show when we get a Miss Texas promo, and we'll also hear a little bit from PG-13 as well. Let's check this out.
I'm 185 pound more bounce for the ounce. You got that, punk? That's what counts. But you see, I'm something missing. It's the Iceman's gold. Danny Davis, you robbed me of my gold, my brother. You robbed the Iceman of his gold. You see, robbed. I did something. We got robbed. We've been robbed. That's right. Somebody called the police. And then you out here trying to embarrass me and make me wrestle women. This is the wrestling world. Women shouldn't even be around.
Wait a minute. We went all through this. This is the 90s. Women can compete in the middleweight division, and the USWA has been applauded for that decision.
That's right. And women can get beat down like the punk that she is, or he is. You know? What you mean, man? What you mean, man? Shut your mouth.
You know, Miss Texas had a few words. Would you like to hear what she had to say?
What she got to say?
Listen to this right here.
I'd be embarrassed because I don't respect you as a man or a wrestler, because every time we step in the ring, you either have Wolfie D in your corner or you use a hubcap on me. But this week, I got the opportunity to use a hubcap on you. And when I do, I'ma nail you in the head every time, because you nothing but a punk and I'm a punk slapper.
Oh, the hubcap's going to be on a pole this week, and whoever gets it can use it, not just you and Wolfie D.
Yeah, well, see, now she's coming to my backyard playing my kind of game. You see, Miss Texas, there ain't nothing I like better than capping somebody, and you know what I mean by capping somebody, my little sister. So you come on down here, because I'm going to slap you around like the man that you are, my girl. What about you, Wolfie D? What's up?
I got that match with the Danny Davis.
For the belt.
Yeah, for the belt. It's coming back to PG-13. That's all I got to say, G.
Bro.
All right, they've had their say. It's
On a pole.
She's a punk slapper, y'all.
I am the punk slapper.
Having Where's the Beef vibes when that started, wasn't she? From WrestleMania.
Oh, man. Yes. Hearing Jamie Dundee go, my brother.
You know what's
my
funny?
favorite.
Wolfie said something on Facebook recently where he was talking about how they got yelled at. We talked about it here too. He got yelled at about having his back turned to the camera and everything. And I made a point to comment on that and say, but you guys were different. You know what I mean? You were young punks that didn't respect anything. Why would you follow television rules? I love the fact they keep turning to Corey. It just adds to their character. I love everything about PG-13 in this era, except that they're heels.
And did you see where Brian Trammell had messaged Wolfie and asked him about that? And Wolfie responded that no, he felt that they were best served to be heels and at that time, and he was glad that they were heels, and they were just starting out, and he felt that the gimmick lent itself to being a heel more. So I mean, I'm not arguing with him. If anybody should know, he should know. But I still feel like they probably could have gotten that gimmick over as babyface out of the gate if they needed to. But also, clearly, looking down the roster, they clearly needed some good heels. And the fact that, like we just discussed before we saw the interviews, the fact that everything they did was designed to put heat on them. Everything. It worked out. And I don't know. I got tickled that Corey made a grumble or a comment or something when they said about women shouldn't be in wrestling, and Wolfie just turned around, shut your mouth.
Danny Davis.
So let's take a look at a little clip here of actually we're going to take a look at their actual match clip. We'll go back here in a little bit and see where Danny Davis won the middleweight title. But let's see their match here. They're having a rematch. They recently wrestled Bill Rush and TD Steele. They're having a rematch here on TV. Let's see if things go any better for TD and Mr. Rush than they did the last time they met.
Bill Rush on his feet and ice whips him into the rope. Rush goes over. Yeah.
Wolfie D nailed him from outside as Bill Rush went into the ropes.
Yeah, he nailed Bill Rush there right on top of the head. And JC Ice with a big elbow sent Bill Rush down.
Tags his partner, Sir Whoopie D. And PG-13. Go to work on Bill Rush. Boy, Rush started off well in there. PG-13 make the switch, no tag. JC Ice, big drop kick. Takes Bill Rush down. Hang on, Sir Whoopie D. JC Ice just slams Rush down. Bill Rush gets on his feet, fought, but he still nailing away on PG-13.
Referee is over trying to help Bill Rush get out of the ring.
Yeah.
Oh, look. And meanwhile, there's that upcap across the back.
He busted TD still. With that hubcap they use in there, referee Kevin Christian does the count to 3, and PG-13 hubcap and all. Hubcap first, as a matter of fact, gets the win.
Now, you couldn't tell it from those highlights that we showed, but if you go back and watch the whole match, TD and Bill Rush actually got quite a bit of offense in that match in the early part, anyway. So, and again, that's just a way to put more heat on them because the fans are like, man, they couldn't even beat those guys if they hadn't cheated, and so I think it's pretty genius, really, to get their characters over and make it to where the fans don't want to cheer for them because they just can't respect them.
Yeah, that's what I liked about this match, man. They made it like an actual contest. And, Jamie's kind of smaller at this point. I mean, Wolfie's taller, but he's not as like a thick of a guy yet. They're both still very young. So, I mean, like, it's really, it's believable that TD and Bill may give them a go, just a little bit where they have a little trouble. And, like this whole match, though, it was like a back and forth type of thing till almost the very end. 3/4 of the match was that way. And I liked that. It felt real. And like you said, they had to use the hubcap. Them dastardly bastards had to use it. And I'll let Richard talk about the shout from the crowd.
Yeah, did you notice that TD Still family was there? And like you heard somebody in the middle of the thing say, give TD some of that action.
Gotcha, mama.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Watch this.
Yeah.
You could definitely tell he was feeling it when he come in and went to throw them punches. And he get in that boxing stance. I always loved that when TD would get that boxing stance. Like, oh no, today's the day. TD's gonna get that win. And
he was doing it Terry Funk style, though, man, throwing them lefts out there, dude.
But as everybody else has, he went down to the hubcap. But somebody who didn't go down to the hubcap, we see a clip here of how Nightmare Danny Davis won the USWA Middleweight Championship from JC Ice, who unfortunately just had a week-long reign as the first champion to hold that belt. So let's take a look at that clip, and then we'll immediately hear from Uncle Danny what he has to say about it on the other side.
Danny missed that time on a move. Here comes our Wolfie D. He's got the hubcap. Oh, but he nails JC Ice with it. Danny's got JC Ice covered. He got him. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And we got a new middleweight champion. Nightmare Danny Davis gets the win in 13 minutes and 37 seconds. Nightmare Danny Davis. Oh, boy, but just look at Sir Whoopie D nail away on Danny with that hubcap in there. Referee Frank Morrell goes over. Oh! Shows JC Ice back. Ice threatening to nail referee Frank Morrell. Frank's trying to keep Sir Whoopie D off of Danny. Whoopie D shows Frank Morrell. Look at Frank in there. Frank's wanted him in there. Sir Whoopie D threatening to jump on Frank Morrell. Oh, boy.
Wolfie D's got that hubcap. Yeah. 13:37. Danny Davis gets the win and is the new USWA Middleweight Champion. Frank Morrell trying to get order in there as PG-13 just continues to go to work on Danny Davis. Look at Frank. Grabs Sir Wolfie D. Frank's telling him, hey, get out of here, would you? And Miss Texas and A-Rod Hatchet.
Danny Davis, the middleweight champion, right here.
Thank you, Dave. You know, I want to take my hand off to Frank Morrell right now because he done everything he could to keep those two guys off me. Well, let me tell you something, Wolfie D. You think you're big and you're bad, but when there's two of you with a hubcap, you did a number on me. Well, let me tell you something. I'm not going to forget the beating that you give me because, as you can see, I'm still nursing the wounds. Yeah, you broke my nose. So what? I've had it broken before. Well, let me tell you something. I'm going to make you a promise, and I never make promises that I can't keep. If you boys show up, and it's always two of you, if you show up this week, I promise you're going to get hurt.
Now, I'm familiar throughout my life with the old phrase, I want to take my hat off to somebody. That's the first time I've heard somebody say, I want to take my hand off. But before we get into Uncle Danny's promo, holy, Wolfie D was killing Uncle Danny with that hubcap. He's just pinging that thing off the top of his head. I was trying to keep count of how many times he connected with his head with that hubcap. Holy shit, that looked rough, dude.
That's what I told Richard when we was watching it back. I said, watch how many times he hits him in the head. And just it bang, 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 bang. It's like he owed him money or something. Or maybe
no wonder he said, take my hand off. He probably still had a concussion.
Well, it was him blocking, and he probably almost ripped it off, throwing it up there.
I'll tell you who was eating crow on this day. That was my grandmother. 2 wins in one day on Memphis TV. And he almost tripled poor Bill Rush. Good to see him.
What do you think her comment was at the end of this clip?
Got lucky.
Yeah.
Had to have a woman come in and save him. Yeah. Woman, that bald head old referee had to come in and save him.
I pointed out to Richard, I have the exact jacket Uncle Danny was wearing for this show in my house, like in my wrestling stuff. It's got the eagle airbrushed in the back. It says Danny on it and stuff. Like he gave it to me a few years ago when we were after my grandmother had passed, like cleaning out the house and stuff.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of shit still in what was his room or whatever back in the day, and he let me have it. It's pretty cool. I told Richard I should have wore it over here, man.
Hell yeah. I hope one day when I click the button and you guys pop on my screen that you're going to be sporting that jacket unexpectedly, and Richard will have on like a Master of Terror mask or some shit. And
we've got
I do have the fucking singlet to one of those Master of Terror suits. There's 2 suits. The Galaxian suits, there's 2 different ones, and I've got the ass to one of them.
I'm sure you've got a few nightmare masks too, don't you?
I got one that was busted, like where they ripped it open to get color or whatever, and he gave that to me as well. But that's kind of almost all I have of like any ring use stuff, or I got some elbow pads and knee pads, shit like that.
Pretty cool, man. You know, I'm a big collector, so I love hearing about stuff like that for sure. So yeah, Uncle Danny has sworn revenge Monday night. He's looking to get some revenge on PG-13, but then he's also going to be in that 6-man tag match. So he's gonna be a busy guy. But goodness gracious, he got his head beat in that one for sure. So I don't know if you guys have been keeping count, but the match that's about to go to the ring, this is going to be match number 5 for this week, and that's, you know, I can't think of an episode where we've had 5 matches in the studio in quite some time. You know, we've been hovering around usually 3, maybe 4 matches most weeks. So definitely different than.
It's weird because like they break the fucking ring the first match, then they're like, let's have as many matches as we can fit on this son of a bitch.
Yeah, so it makes you wonder, like, did they have 8 matches scheduled and we cut it down to 5, or we just didn't care apparently? But I feel like you're gonna be pretty excited about this main event here, Josh, because once again, it's almost as if Jeff Jarrett just exclusively wrestles Reggie B. Fine on TV now, because in recent times he's wrestling almost every week. And of course, it's the return of our favorite enhancement wrestler in USWA history, at least since we've been doing this show. Mr. Clyde is back. We hadn't seen him in a couple of weeks, so he's here. Mr. Clyde and Reggie B taking on the King and Jeff Jarrett. Let's take a little look and see if this Reggie B lives up to the entertainment value of the most recent matches we've seen.
Reggie strutting around, celebrating, challenging Jeff Jarrett. I tell you what, he better be doing a lot of celebrating right now, because he makes the King and Jeff mad. It could be a long day or a very short day. All right, he just hit him with a fist. That's a mistake. First move he makes is a mistake by Reggie B. Fine.
Yeah, and again, another. Oh! He gets it back, though, and Reggie B. tells it out of there quickly. Runs over to Mr. Clyde for a little control. And he tells referee Frank Morale, he hit me with his fist. Reggie B. backs him up against the rope. Puts him in!
Well, there again, Reggie could not get the momentum springing off the ropes. Lawler just backed away and let Reggie fall in the middle of the ring on his back.
I don't know what in the world they're thinking, but Jeff's going to help him think. Clyde whips him into the turnbuckle. Jarrett gets out of there, comes off the ropes, and DDT's Clyde. Covers him, two, he got him, it's over with. Boy, it did not take long. The King, Jerry Lawler, and Jeff Jarrett wrap up a quick 1, 2, 3 on Reggie B. Fine, Mr. Clyde.
And let me tell you, youngsters, don't hit either one up with a fist when you step into the ring. You just make them mad.
There you go, Richard. Just for you, Jeff Jarrett brings back the leaping DDT on poor Mr. Clyde.
Oh, that's so shitty. I can't. It looks like he's slipping on something almost, you know? If your grandmother falls that way, you're concerned. I'll say that. But outside of that, no harm was done with that move.
Yeah, I wish we could. I know you guys interviewed him one time, but I wish we could get Jarrett on the show just long enough that you could berate him over this DDT. Like, we got 2 questions for you, guy. We're not going to take up much of your time.
Right.
We just, number one, we want to know what the hell was that video that we saw a couple of weeks ago. Please tell us everything you can remember or make up off the top of your head about that video. And then tell us who told you that leaping DDT was a good idea. And did you ever watch back any of these matches and actually see it to continue doing it and think it was a good idea? And go. Yeah. Let me tell you.
I feel like you just hear a dial tone after you ask that question.
Oh, definitely. He knows what he did. He knows what he did.
All right, we'll give him a break. Jeff Jarrett's still competing at a high level and is better shape than I've ever been in my entire life and ever hope to be. And so kudos to Jeff. We'll give him a pass on the bad DDT he was using in '93. He figured it out eventually, right?
Yeah.
So kudos to him. Now we're going to take our last commercial break so we can summarize this show and hear what you guys thought about it. Now, I usually don't ever use the same bumper for the commercial twice in one show, but that one's so good, we're going to use it again for this commercial, and then we'll be right back to find out what these guys think of today's episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jarrett, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/wrestlepod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Poor Brian Christopher. Whew. That was a rough one. All right, so let's let them run down the card for Monday night in case we hadn't been keeping up with what we've been setting up here. And I really, of all the episodes, I really can't wait to hear you guys tell me what's your favorite part of today's episode and somehow narrow down what your least favorite part was. But first, let's hear what's happening at the Mid-South Coliseum this Monday.
At 7:30 is when it all begins. Eddie Gilbert, Hot Stuff, will be going against the Master of Terror. That's
Great
just,
opening bout.
Yeah, just the opener there.
Yeah.
Then you got the Harlem Knights coming in.
Ooh.
They'll be going against Tony Falk and Tony Williams, a couple of very worthy competitors for these huge Harlem Knights. Middleweight title will be on the stake after that. You just saw the champion in action here on television a moment ago. Danny Davis, only Monday night, he will be defending the middleweight title against Wolfie D, the other half of PG-13.
Yeah,
Danny took the belt away from Jamie Dundee, and now Wolfie D says, I want a chance at that middleweight title. Hubcap on a pole match coming up. That's right, a hubcap's going to be on a pole. You get it, you can use it as a legal weapon. Ms. Texas goes against Jamie Dundee. Ought to be a good one. Southern title will be on the line. Jeff Jarrett's got it. He wants to keep it. Axel Rotten coming in here from Global and WCW. He will be in to try to take the Southern title away from Jeff Jarrett. Unified title is going to be at stake. The King is talking about this one. Mike Samples has got the Russian Brute. Mike is in. He insulted just about everybody in the world, I think, when he was out here for his interview a little bit earlier. He had something, a strange thing about Samples, he had some things to say that were true, and then he mixed them in with all that other stuff. The Russian Brute will be stepping in trying to take the unified title from the King, Jerry Lawler, and I tell you, big as he is, he's got his work cut out for him. Then, the tag titles will be on the line. Brian Christopher, Big Black Dog, and Bert Prentice are going to have to put those USWA World Tag titles against the former holders of the belts, the Moondogs, with Richard Lee. One stipulation here. Richard Lee had insisted no return match, and in order to get a return match, Brian Christopher enforced that and said, if you want a return match, got to put one of the Moondogs' hair on the line. Moondog Spot will have his hair on the line. A Monday night hair versus title at the Mid-South Coliseum. Then, that was to have been the main event. Extra added match coming up, though, at special request to Jerry Lawler, Jeff Jarrett, and Danny Davis. After they watched what the Harlem Knights and Brian Christopher did to those three young guys out here today, Jeff came out to help, got involved in all of it. So put it on the card. Jerry Lawler, Jeff Jarrett, Danny Davis against the huge Harlem Knights and Brian Christopher.
Okay, so this is just a short answer here. We're not going to get into a whole big conversation, but I just want to ask you, after hearing them run down the card, is there any one particular thing about this card that stands out to you?
Mm-hmm.
Let's hear it.
The main event. Like, it's big, but that's probably a personal connection. You know what I mean? But I mean, you know, I could see that being an awesome main event. And I would like to see if the Moondog gets his head shaved or not, too. So, two things.
Richard, anything different for you?
No, it seems like the same thing we've been seeing for the past couple of weeks, minus the big stars.
It does seem like we've only got 8 people available.
Yeah.
Here's the answer I was looking for, because this is what stands out to me. After having this weeks-long feud with his brother, Eddie Gilbert's in the opening match against the Master of Terror.
Yeah.
How many years had it probably been since Eddie Gilbert had been in an opening match on a Memphis card. Probably not since the early 80s.
Right.
Not since he had ascended up the card. Not saying it's a big deal. Saying maybe keep it in mind for the future. It may come back into play sometime. I don't know. I just find it suspicious, if you will. All right, guys. Go ahead.
They did have him on the opening card for last week's TV or 2 weeks ago's TV. I can't remember the time frame now when he was wrestling. It was a reason for that, but I mean,
yeah, TV's different to me.
Yeah,
opening match on TV is not really like opening match of the house show card because
right.
You know, you may want to start the TV off hot. You may want, so I don't read it too much into that. But in Memphis, especially when you look at these opening matches, that usually are just somebody thrown in there. There's no angle to them. It's usually just some rando that if they don't show up, who cares? Most of the time. It just really stands like a sore thumb. Like Eddie has been in a main angle for weeks now, and then he wins this loser leave town match, and now he's not on TV. He's not moving into another angle. He's just in an opening match, throwaway match with the Master of Terror. That's just I don't know. It strikes me as odd. Former world champion. Anyway, so let's go ahead and let's answer the all-important questions that I ask you every week about today's episode. This question may be a tough one. I don't know. Or you both may have answers just sitting on the tip of your tongue. What was your least favorite part of today's TV show?
The first half of it. The long
entire first half.
The long match that even God in the ring tried to stop. It really was just the first half of that show with the long interview and the long match with the Knights. It really took a toll on me this week. I think I sent you guys a message that just said, well, the second half of the show didn't make me want to self-harm as much as the first half of the show did. So
that's
yes,
always good.
Yeah, it's what you want. It's what you want. But yeah, that first half of that show was just dreadful.
Josh?
Mine was just specifically the Harlem Knights trios match. Can I call it trios?
Yeah. I mean,
that apply here?
If it was 1993, you wouldn't. They'd look at you like you had a third eyeball. Like, what the fuck's a trios match? But looking back, sure, we can pull out.
Well, as horrible as this is, it deserves to be called a trios match other than a 3-man tag. That's why I did that.
True.
But either way, it was absolutely horrible. It was too long. We covered this already, but 14 minutes. I checked. It was a little over 14, honestly, from bell to bell. But either way, it was just awful. And then the ring breaking, like that just disabled the whole show. I mean, like that makes people scared to kind of do certain things. Like Brian almost busted his ass trying to get up to the top rope during that same match. It added this stink to the entire show. And I guess they didn't have another rope or whatever went wrong. And it just, left a bad taste in my mouth.
To be fair, Memphis needed better rings because this would not be the only time over the years that a rope would break and early in the show and wreak havoc on the rest of the show. This has happened at least once in the 85 shows that me and Ray Russell are reviewing. And I know over the years I've seen it happen more than once. If they knew that was a spot they were going to do, somebody should have told Nelson Knight, like, dude, you cannot get on the ropes in a USWA ring. That's not, you're going to tear this thing down to the floor. It's going to look like when they used to cave in when they do the superplex spot with Big Show and Brock Lesnar or Mark Henry or whoever. All right, so nobody asked, but I'm gonna give you my answer here because I've had a few people messaging me on Facebook like, "Why do you never tell your answer to the questions?" Like, because nobody's asking me the questions. So I'm gonna go ahead and interject because I'll agree that our first half was rough. I agree the Harlem Knights match was rough. However, the Harlem Knights match has some redeeming qualities just because there's some entertainment value there, be it intentional or not. It's still kind of wild to see a few of those spots, and at least there was something to it. That goddamn Mike Samples promo, and nothing against Mike Samples. I don't dislike Mike Samples, and I like a lot of the things he's done over the years, but holy crap. Like, if I had to pinpoint one promo of all the promos we've watched on USWA from January to now, I do believe that was the worst promo we've seen. Maybe I'm wrong, but just for the sheer length of it and the content, the president called me to go to Russia to help supplement their income or whatever. Like, what are we talking about? You're like, hey, this is all we could find. We got a Russian guy. Get in the ring, man. Let's go. We didn't need that. We did not need all that. So I'm sorry. That's my answer. But we all agree it all comes back to Richard's answer. The first half of the show was a stinker.
Yeah.
All right. So this may be a little tougher, maybe not. But what's your favorite part of the show this week?
Two things. I liked watching Uncle Danny put that man in a hospital, and I liked PG-13. They're becoming part of my favorite segments of this show. Like you said, they're doing things to force the crowd to stop liking them, but the crowd does like them. They're just too cool. They're cool in a way, like you got that cool heel that a lot of people wanted to be back then. You know, me, you know, you had the shirt with Bugs Bunny and Taz with the backwards clothes and that hip hop gimmick. I mean, they were just really cool. So everything they're doing is just, it's making the show better, is watching PG-13 and their antics.
Josh?
Mine had to be the Uncle Danny match, man. Like he just, it broken ring aside, I had like not so high hopes for it, but he got to, you know, wrestling, doing the chain wrestling stuff. And then it was like after the Harlem Knights and Brian Christopher came out, he just starts doing moves, doing tiger bombs and shit. Like he's just that tombstone. Can you remember a tombstone on Memphis TV in the recently? No, like, and not a
because technically it's a pile driver. I mean, technically it should have been a DQ if we go by the old Memphis rules, but they hadn't seen a tombstone in Memphis, so they were just like, let it go.
I'm sure I ain't seen one like that with the arms spread.
Should have been disqualified once he did that, man. He should have lost that one. Right. Give him the belt.
Owen Hart did a safer tombstone pile driver than that on Steve Austin.
Oh man! But
thank God that kid wasn't supposed to go over. I'm saying, get the one and kiss my ass match.
But yeah, like just the plethora of moves, and then he does the signature nightmare neckbreaker, and like if it didn't hurt, he's absolute pro, man. Like it looked great, looked like it hurt like hell. And
I wish we had a better angle to see how that kid landed on the tombstone, because if there was any question about his neck, woo, that neck breaker did him in the rest of the way, because that thing snapped off. It was rough, son.
But the crowd during that match, they were so into it. Like, and then, you know, they were reactionary even when the Harlem Knights, Brian Christopher, and then Jeff Jarrett and Lawler come out. I mean, they were really, really into it. And just the whole feel of it, man, the whole energy of that just felt really exciting. That, you know,
I will say that I did like the change of gear that the Harlem Knights had when they came back out. That looked way cooler than what they were wearing before.
Yeah. I don't know if that was their casual attire that they wear to the mall. That's just what they drove up in, or if that was actual gear. But yes, it did look better than what they wrestled in for sure. But that might have been like, hey, we're going to the mall after this. We got to walk out there and intimidate Uncle Danny. And Uncle Danny was like, I ain't intimidated. Shit, look at what I did. Look at this. I'll do this to you, fat boy. I ain't scared of you. I eat turds like you for breakfast. I mean, wait a minute. That's Happy Gilmore. I guess my favorite part, besides Uncle Danny's tombstone, for just purely entertainment reasons, is the PG-13 segment, just because they're so different than anything else we've seen on the show thus far in all of our USWA reviews. It's kind of a breath of fresh air, because it's just, like I say, they're very different than any of the other teams we've seen. The promos, the matches, like you said, Josh, it made their match more entertaining because there was a competitive feel to even wrestling guys like TD Steele and Bill Rush that we know normally aren't going to win, but they had these glimpses of like, oh God, these guys might pull off one here. So it gave you a little, you're a little more invested in it than you were the matches where it's just like, yeah, the Russian guy's fixing to kill this guy, or, you know, whatever. So I enjoyed the match. I enjoyed the promo. I enjoyed that clip of poor Uncle Danny getting his head bashed in. Goodness gracious. I would have to think Wolfie had a couple of receipts for that coming out of that in the next week, but I guess
kudos for him still wearing bandages, you know. I mean, like, he's selling it. He ain't no fucking Richard Lee, you know, with the arm.
So you broke my nose. So what? He's such an angry dude to have a star on his face. You don't expect him to sound like that. You expect him to be a little happier. So, all right. So let's head down to the Mid-South Coliseum. Let's find out how this all played out. But before we get there, I did a little research because as I watched this show and it went off, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, now, wait a minute. The deal was at this point, Vince McMahon had made a deal with Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler that every week he was going to send a somewhat major WWE talent to Memphis to draw. And this card does not have one. Well, turns out up until either late Friday night or early Saturday morning, Giant Gonzalez was slated to come in for Monday night. Now, there's no, and I'm getting this all from the Wrestling Observer and places like that. There was no inkling of what he was going to do, how that was going to be, playing out. But Giant Gonzalez was supposed to be their WWF name. They find out at the last minute Giant Gonzalez has been added to Raw to do an interview, but that was great. So we're going to have to pull him, and it's too late to put anybody in his place. That's why Men on a Mission or Harlem Knights, I guess I should say, their first weekend gets plugged into an impromptu main event match because we're just scrambling now to do something because we don't have our WWF star that we had. Now, to their credit, last week with WWF superstar Macho Man Randy Savage and WCW mid-card star Scotty Flamingo, we drew 1,500 people. This week, with no WWF star, with brand new green guys, Harlem Knights, who had this 15-minute match we've pissed and moaned about for an entire episode, they drew 1,600 people for an $8,900 gate, 100 more people than we drew for Macho Man. So I guess maybe other people were more impressed with that match than we were. I don't know. But for a little further context here, Savage comes to Memphis. They draw 1,500. Savage comes to Louisville on March the 9th when the loop makes it around from that TV, makes it around to Louisville. Louisville, Kentucky draws 3,000 people with Macho Man and Lawler on top. Now, bear in mind, that is the biggest crowd they have drawn in Louisville since the mid-'80s. Louisville typically drew 400 to 500 people a week, and the house jumped up to 3,000 with Macho Man there, which is what they expected to happen in Memphis, but for whatever reason, it didn't. So I just found that interesting that, that's why all of a sudden the Harlem Knights come in, we shoot straight to the top. We don't have a WWF star. And for whatever reason, Macho didn't draw in Memphis. And I think we kind of talked about it last time. There could have been something going on in Memphis that night. Who knows, what other event could have been taking place. But glad to hear he drew well in Louisville. So now, we already kind of spoiled this, but March 15th, Mid-South Coliseum, 1,600 people for a gate of $8,900. The Master of Terror defeats TD Steele. It would seem that Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert did not show up tonight for his opening bout against Ken Wayne, the Master of Terror. In the second match, the Harlem Knights defeated Tony Falk and Mr. Clyde in a match previously unadvertised. The USWA Middleweight Champion, Nightmare Danny Davis, defeats Wolfie D. And by the way, as I'm reading to those Wrestler Observers, whoever their correspondent was from Memphis that was sending results at that point was spelling it WOFFYD. Woofy D is how they spelled it. And Meltzer was putting it into the Observer for the first several ones until he figured it out.
They were just listening to Corey over the PA. Like,
Dave Meltzer calls. What's this guy's name? Woofy D. Woofy D? Woofy D. Okay. All right. Well, I got
That's what Corey said.
Corey told us it was Woofy D. Miss Texas defeats JC Ice, Jamie Dundee in a hubcap on a pole match. I hope we get a clip of that next week. That should be fun. All right, guys. Big shocker here. Jerry Lawler successfully defends the USWA Unified Heavyweight title against the Russian Brute with Mike Samples.
They have a time on that match?
We don't have a time on that match.
Damn.
I wish we did.
Not a good
Moondogs.
Not a good
Spot
time
and
for them.
Splat defeat Brian Christopher and the Big Black Dog to once again win the USWA Tag Team titles, in the process saving Spot's hair. And this has got to be like their 42nd reign as USWA Tag Team champions. You know, they were switching it back and forth every week with Harris. Now we've switched it back and forth in consecutive weeks with Brian Christopher and the Big Black Dog. However, at the end of this match, after the Big Black Dog lost the match, Brian Christopher and Burt Prentice turned on the Big Black Dog and left him in the ring. So that's the end of that tag team. Then in the main event, hold on to your socks for this one, the Harlem Knights and Brian Christopher defeated Jerry the King Lawler, Nightmare Danny Davis, and Jeff Jarrett. Now, we don't have exact results as far as who took the pin, what the circumstances were. Hopefully we get some clips on next week's episode.
We know.
I mean,
yeah.
Spoiler Granny there. She does I can't do the voice, but I'm sure she's like, what they expect getting Danny Davis in the main event? Come on. But he was there. So all right, so that was quite the episode. It went longer than we thought. We thought it was going to be shorter than our average episode. It's actually 5 or 6 minutes longer than our last couple. I apologize. But we hope everybody enjoyed it, and we'll see you back here next week, and we'll see if we get back on track with having a big-time WWF superstar coming to town. And before you go, stick around and hear a little bit about where you can find more on this podcast and all the other great podcasts for WrestleCopia. And guys, thanks for joining us. And Richard, Josh, y'all ready to do it again next time?
Oh, yeah.
Let's be back, man.
All right. Well, you guys, in the meantime, check out P3 Radio. You can find it anywhere and everywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you have fun listening to this show, you will definitely have fun listening to P3 Radio. They cut out all the little bit of serious wrestling talk we do here. They cut all that out. It's just fun, and it's definitely worth the listen each and every week. They have not missed a week in like 12 years now or something. It's crazy. I respect their work ethic so much, and I'm struggling to try to match it week in and week out here on the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. We'll see you next week. Hey, folks, before we get out of here, I'd just like to take a moment to tell you we appreciate you checking out the podcast. And if you would, do us a favor, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you're listening to this right now, wherever you're watching it. If you'll just take a moment to either subscribe, to rate, and review, let us know what you think. We hope you're liking it. But even if you're not, let us know what you would like to see changed, and we will take that in consideration as we move forward. So we really appreciate any feedback we can get. Also, we just want to say how proud we are to be a part of the WrestleCopia brand of wrestling podcast. Ray Russell brings you something for everyone over at WrestleCopia.com. Check out all the great wrestling podcasts available over there right now. And for all things related to the Retro Wrestling Review podcast, you can go to USWApodcast.com and you can find links to everything we have there, our Facebook, our Twitter/X, our TikTok, our Instagram, our merch store. That's right. We've got shirts, we've got hats, we've got phone cases, we've got all kinds of great stuff. And it's all right there at our store. And you can find a link to it at USWApodcast.com. There's a link to the YouTube channel we're associated with, the Retro Wrestling Archive. You can find all that there. And if you have questions for us, if you saw something on the show that you have a question about or a comment about, if you've got some info to answer a question we have, or you got a question you want us to read on the air, if you want to work out an ad swap, if you want to have any kind of communication with us, you can go and send an email to USWApodcast@outlook.com, and I will get back to you just as quickly as humanly possible. And if you're a fan of Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert, And if you've heard it, I know you are. Check out DougGilbertPodcast.com for all things related to Doug's podcast. You can find links to our Facebook page for the show, our Twitter. You can find links to Doug's social media, his Twitter, his Facebook. All that's available there, plus a link to the YouTube channel. And if you have a question for Doug you would like for me to ask him on the air, you can send that question to DougGilbertPodcast@outlook.com, and we will get it added and it will get answered in a future episode just as quickly as we can work it in. So we appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. And we'll catch you here next week for more